Each relaunch is an opportunity to expand your reach and make an even bigger impact with your digital course, all without overextending or overwhelming yourself. I'm Amy Porterfield, ex-corporate girl turned CEO of a multi-seven-figure business. But it wasn't all that long ago that I lacked the confidence, the budget, and the time to focus on growing my small but mighty business. Fast forward past many failed attempts and lessons learned, and you'll see the business I have today. One that changes lives and gives me more freedom than I ever thought possible. One that used to only exist as a daydream. I created the Online Marketing Made Easy podcast to give you simple, actionable, step-by-step strategies to help you do the same. If you're an ambitious entrepreneur or one in the making who's looking to create a business that makes an impact and a life you love, you're in the right place, friend. Let's get started. Welcome back to Online Marketing Made Easy. If you've ever found yourself overwhelmed or burnt out at the thought of creating or launching a digital course, then this is the episode for you. Because today I'm taking you behind the scenes to reveal the incredible power of my relaunch strategy. Over the last 15 years in the online business world, if you ask me which strategy has transformed my business and created the most freedom in my life, it's this one. And the best news is that it's really straightforward. I can take the same Digital Course Academy, and open enrollment once a year, every single year. By consistently relaunching the same course, I've grown my business to over $100 million in revenue and expanded my team to more than 20 employees. And I've managed to do this while avoiding burnout and still having a lot of fun along the way. There was this moment last year in my Digital Course Academy launch. We were halfway through the launch and we just needed to take a break. It was someone's birthday who loved Taylor Swift. Shout out to Allison. And we decided to do an impromptu dance party in my kitchen to Taylor Swift. And it was like the most fun. And the reason that we were able to enjoy that moment and really bond in that way is because we truly have a finely tuned system in place for launching. Our strategy for launching or relaunching the same course, it's proven to deliver results time and time again. And with everything really well organized, we knew exactly what needed to be done the next day, which allowed for a little fun in the moment. Now, I'm not saying that launches don't get stressful. We all have our moments. Every launch I've done, we've had our ups and downs. But when things are actually moving in the right direction and you know you've got a plan, I'm telling you, it allows you to breathe so much easier. I know that every time I move into a relaunch, that there are very little surprises and that all the major hard work has already been done. And that feels good. So having a clear plan in place, it means that we don't have to stay up super late scrambling to figure things out. So I haven't always had this in place, right? And I remember the days of literally writing the email for the next morning at like midnight during a launch. Like all my emails were not done yet. I hadn't written all of them. This is what happens when you're just starting out. So these were in my early days, but I was literally writing the email for the next morning in the middle of a launch. So I've been there. I know the difference between having a clear plan that you get to do over and over and over again and starting from scratch and everything feeling really chaotic. And I think you need both. I think the first time you launch, it does feel overwhelming. It's new. You've never done it before. But once you get that first launch out of the gate and you commit to relaunching the same course, it gets easier. I always say the first launch is as much for you as it is for your students because you're learning as you go. You've never done this before. Everything feels new to you. So yeah, you're going to stumble. Yeah, you're going to have your moments, but you're just getting that first launch out there so you know what to expect moving forward. And if you did your first launch knowing, oh, I plan to do this year after year, maybe a few times a year or once a year, whatever, all this hard work will not just go to waste after this is over. All this hard work will pay off years and years down the road for me. It makes your first launch feel very different. And I really want you to hear that. Your first launch is as much for you as it is for your students, but after that, it gets easier. And I just want to clarify that relaunching a digital course doesn't mean doing the exact same thing without any changes whatsoever, especially in the online world. It is important to iterate and experiment with different strategies and different campaigns that you want to do to stay current, and you want to level up each time you launch. And definitely we do that. It might sound counterintuitive, but relaunching the same course over and over actually gives you a safe space to experiment and try new things and find what works. Each relaunch is an opportunity to expand your reach and make an even bigger impact with your digital course, all without overextending or overwhelming yourself. And why aren't you overextending or overwhelming yourself? Because you're not starting from scratch. That's where the burnout and the overwhelm happens, when you're always starting from scratch, always starting from zero, always starting with a clean slate. When you're just getting started from scratch, that is overwhelming. There's no way to even take out the overwhelm. It happens for all of us. But imagine if you've got the foundation figured out, and each time you relaunch, you get to tweak something, add something, change something. But again, you're not starting from scratch. That's the secret here. And I don't think enough people talk about that's the best way to utilize a digital course in your business. Never, ever think of digital courses as one and done, and then you're going to move on to something new. Never, ever. Really squeeze the juice out of that digital course for as long as you can, and you'd be amazed how long you can squeeze that juice. Okay. So now that you have a small idea of what a relaunch looks like, let's take a moment to outline what's coming up in today's episode so you know exactly what to expect and where we're headed. First, I'll show you concrete evidence of the impact a relaunch strategy can have on your business. To do this, I'm going to lay out some of my own launch numbers that I've never shared before on this podcast. Next, I'll walk you through the 3 essential tools I use to make my relaunch strategy effective. I'm going to explain how setting these up right from the start, when you're creating your digital course in the first place, can dramatically boost your success with this strategy. And then finally, I'll wrap up this episode with clear, actionable steps that you can start applying right away. Yes, I'm challenging you to take action today with the strategies I'm sharing. You don't need to implement everything at once, but I do want you to set up a plan. So I jumped into creating and launching a digital course before I felt completely ready. And looking back, not waiting for everything to be perfect or for me to have all the decisions made and understand everything, it was the best decision I've ever made. I want to pass that same courage and drive onto you today to start before you feel fully ready. That's a great principle for life in general, but it's really true for digital courses as well. My hope is that with this strategy I lay out in today's episode, you're going to discover the incredible freedom that comes with creating a single digital course. So are you ready to dive in? Let's get started. Let's start with a quick story about Digital Course Academy, which is my signature program that I relaunch every single year in my business. To really dive into this, I'm going to take you back through a bit of my business's history. If you've been tuning into this podcast for a while, you might recall 2 courses I previously offered. They were called Courses That Convert and another course called Webinars That Convert. Shout out to my OGs that have access to these programs or purchased these way back when. Sometimes I run into people and they'll say, oh my gosh, I knew you back when you had Webinars That Convert, which feels like 8,000 years ago. So I always love hearing from people that have had those courses. Now, I put all my best strategies into those 2 programs and they were good. They produced results for my students and profit for my business. But I noticed that something was off. Many of my students weren't achieving the big life-changing results that I knew they were capable of if they used my strategies and implemented what I taught. And then after digging deeper, I realized the problem was that they were only mastering half of what's needed for a successful life-changing digital course launch. So some students they were nailing the marketing side with webinars that convert. And then other students, they were creating and teaching incredible courses, but they didn't have the marketing tools to get it out into the world. So those that bought webinars that convert, they were super excited about the marketing stuff, but they're like, but I don't have a course. And then the people that bought courses that convert, they're like, I've got this course now, but I don't know how to market it. And I didn't love saying, oh, you need to buy my other program in order to learn that. That just didn't feel right. It didn't feel good. So I knew to truly excel at creating and launching a digital course, you needed to understand both sides of it, courses and launching. So back in 2019, my team and I had an idea. Actually, the idea was in 2018, and then we unleashed it in 2019. But back in 2018, we had this idea. Why not merge these two courses into one comprehensive program? And I have to tell you, those of you who are thinking of anything like changing something around or pivoting, it was very scary. I did not know if it would work. I didn't know if it was a bad idea. At the time, the most expensive thing I had ever sold was $1,000. And I knew I was going to need to charge more for this, which freaked me out. So at the time, like asking someone to even pay $2,000, I'm thinking, can I even do that? So there were a lot of fears that came with this, but I just knew in my gut, this was the right decision. So merging these programs, again, no small feat. It involved me and two of my team members sitting on the floor for days. I remember we were at my house in the hallway for some reason, just sitting on the floor, surrounded by sticky notes and papers. We were moving them all around. We were taping things to the wall. We were writing on whiteboards. Like we spent hours and hours debating and planning the best way to structure this new program. Because it was interesting, even though we had these two programs that I was merging, it wasn't so simple as just take this, put that, and put it in one course. It was revamping the entire roadmap of how someone should create and launch a digital course. It was all really about the sequence. So the question that came up often is, what sequence will give students the best results? Like, what does the roadmap look like? Another question is this information essential? Or can we teach it in a way that saves people more time and money? Do we really need to go into that much detail? So it just turned into a huge project in 2018. And we were rewriting scripts, designing new PDFs, creating fresh templates, spending multiple days refilming videos. So essentially, it's like a brand new program. I had some content to pull from, but I was creating a brand new program. So think of it as a first launch. And we all know the first course, the first launch, it's the most work, right? And it was intense. But here's the thing. I was able to fully commit to the process and maintain the right mindset to get it done because I knew, this is the ding, ding, ding. If you're multitasking, come back to me. I knew this wasn't just for a one-time launch. So if you're listening right now and you're thinking about creating a digital course and it feels overwhelming to you, you have to look at the big picture. You have to look at the future. This is not for a one and done, one time only, then I'm going to throw it away kind of thing. This is for the future of your business. So think about it. I launched it in 2019. It's 2024 and I am still launching it and it's gotten bigger and better every single year. The 2018 work in order to launch it in 2019 was so worth it. And that can be your story as well. I knew that I was creating an asset that I could relaunch over and over again, continuing to generate revenue in my business and helping new students achieve their dreams for years to come. I knew the hard work would pay off, and I was confident that this was just the beginning. Did I have any guarantees? No, but I had launched courses before, so I had a little track record behind me, but I've seen what other people have done with relaunching their courses. So I had seen others go before me and I knew, okay, this can work. There's proof right there. So when the new Digital Course Academy was ready, I launched it for the first time in January 2019, and that launch brought in $3.5 million. I don't know if I've ever shared that before. And remember, this wasn't my first launch. I already had a business. I already had an audience. Plus, I was teaching how to create and launch digital courses. So I better be good at this if I'm teaching it, right? So it was a really successful launch. I have to tell you, back in 2019, when it was $3.5 million, I literally lost my mind. I could not believe what we had pulled off. It was like the best feeling ever. At that point, that was definitely the biggest launch I had ever done with a digital course. So that felt really good. Now, since then, I've opened Digital Course Academy for enrollment 6 times. So once every September since then, but also in March 2021, we actually launched it early in the year and then in September. I launched it twice. I wanted to experiment. I didn't like it. That was a really bad year for me for many, many, many reasons, but I tried it. And that's another thing. We've got to experiment. When you are relaunching a course over and over again, as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of opportunity to try new things and experiment. Some things you'll love, some things you won't. I didn't love what I did in 2021, but to be really honest, side note, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but I had moved to Nashville from California where I had lived all my life. And I let my husband talk me into moving to Nashville. We rolled into town on December 31st, 2020. And so in March 2021, I was brand new to Nashville, super miserable. I did not have a first good year here. Now I love it and will never want to leave, but I didn't have a first good year. I got into a lot of depression, thought I had made a mistake in moving, and our house was a disaster. We bought a new house, but it needed construction. So it was rough. So I don't think I was in the best state of mind. So I kind of have to say March 2021 wasn't my favorite year of launching, but at the same time, I also was in a really bad place. So it happens. Life and business, unfortunately, they kind of get into bed together when you are a personal brand. So it is what it is. But I did try and I did experiment with something new, launching twice in 2021. I just don't think I would do it again. Now, again, with each launch, this is what you need to really hear. I fine-tuned the course content, my marketing strategies, my masterclass, my messaging. The better I got at this, the more effectively I could connect with those who truly wanted and needed what I was offering. And as a result, my community of students grew with each and every iteration of Digital Course Academy. So to be clear, a Digital Course Academy in 2019, it actually looks pretty different than what it looks like today. Not dramatically different. You still will find the battle-tested strategies that I've taught for years and years, but I have absolutely changed how I teach it. I have changed the roadmap of the order in which I teach it. Now I teach people how to pre-sell their course. I did not do that back in 2019. In my marketing, now I offer a sneak peek into module 1. I did not do that years ago. So definitely the marketing has changed and the course has changed, but little by little, none of it felt overwhelming. The most overwhelming part was the first time I created it. That just is what it is. But then everything got easier. So I, again, have launched 6 times since that first time I launched it. And we've actually welcomed over 22,000 students into Digital Course Academy. And I just want you to take a moment to think about this. Since 2019, this single course that I had created has significantly expanded its impact in reaching and helping so many students achieve their goals. And its revenue has nearly quadrupled since that first launch. So I've seen great revenue success with Digital Course Academy, but what I'm most proud of is the success stories that have come out of it. And I can promise you, there's bigger and better success stories that come out of it in 2023, 2024 now that will come out of it versus back then because the course has just gotten better. And there were great success stories back in 2019 that I was really proud of that came out of that. But again, you're just going to get better and better as you do this. And I think the greatest part of it, the part I really want you to hear, is that I launched this in 2019. And because I am committed to relaunching every year, I learned so much about my students. Like I could rattle off, I'll spare you, but I could rattle off every single objection that is prevalent throughout most of my students in terms of what has stopped them from creating a digital course, what gets them stuck when they start to create a digital course, all the fears, the doubts that are swarming around in their head. I know it all. None of it is a surprise to me. And I use it all in my messaging. So if you've ever heard me talk about Digital Course Academy, if you've ever seen a masterclass I've done about it, and if you've ever thought like, oh no, that's exactly how I feel. I know how you feel because I've been committed to the same program year after year after year. I can't help but get better. Like that's what happens when you're committed to something. And I do think that it's a commitment. Are there some times that I think like, should I create a course on something wildly different? And maybe down the road I will. But for years, I was like, no, stay in your lane. There's so much more you can learn. There's so much value you can offer your students. You're getting better and better every year as a business owner and marketer. Stay in your lane. It was like this little voice. And I wanted to be known for something. And you can bet if you stay in your lane and you launch the same course year after year, you will be known for the topic of that course if you want to be. And that is exactly what happened. So I just want to put it out there. And I want to say, I'll put this on me, but then I want you to kind of look in the mirror and see yourself and what I'm going to say next. Imagine if I had taken a different path. What if instead of relaunching the same course, I decided to create and launch a new course in 2020? So 2019, I had this great success. What if I'm like, you know what? That was awesome. Okay, what next? Should I teach productivity? Should I teach manifestation? Should I teach memberships? Now that I've nailed courses, should I change to a different modality? No, I never thought any of that. But imagine if I did, I wouldn't be here today as one of the leaders of teaching how to create and launch a digital course. So I don't say this to brag. I don't say this to say, look at me, look what I've done. And sometimes I'm very uncomfortable with sharing numbers and details and all of that, but I am committed to doing that because what I want you to see, what I want you to feel and think is, okay, if this worked for her and she started out with zero, her first launch, she made $267 and then cried for an entire week. Like if that girl can do it, then so can I. What would it look like if I stay committed to one course? And I've got to step back. Sometimes I hate sharing numbers with you because when I told you how much I made in 2019, I almost didn't share that because you could say, well, of course you're going to relaunch again. Look what you did. Of course you are. That's a no-brainer. Hold on. I have relaunched courses. That was not the first course I relaunched. So I used to have a course on Facebook marketing. And the first time I launched that, I made $10,000. And the last time I launched it, when I retired the program, because I was ready to kind of move into a new direction, I made $950,000, $10,000 to $950,000. So I know what it feels like not to make millions with the digital course. I was really proud of $10,000 with that launch. I felt like I had made it. The second launch was $30,000. And I'm like, holy cow, I'm the richest woman in the world. So those numbers were huge to me back then. And I relaunched after a course made 10,000. I would relaunch after a course made 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. I would relaunch that course because you figured out how to attract people in the first place with a small audience. Imagine as your audience grows, because we need to remember, and I'm going to get into this later, every time you launch, you're adding more people to your email list. So every time you launch, your audience is getting bigger and bigger. And the people who watched your master classes and social media and read your emails about your course last year, if they didn't buy, they're more likely to buy this year. So it's just like an amazing domino effect that can happen. And so again, I am not a big fan of starting from scratch. Imagine if I created a brand new course every year. And that would entail developing new messaging. Okay, first, just creating a new course. That's a big deal. And then new messaging, having to find a new audience or talk to my audience differently, creating and filming an entirely new program, new curriculum. I'd essentially be reinventing the wheel every year. And look at what you've done year after year if you've been in business for a while and ask yourself, every year, do I have something new coming out? And you might think that that was a good thing. Like I'm innovating. I'm always putting new stuff out there. I'm grabbing my audience's attention. I actually do not think that is a smart business strategy. I think having the same program, but iterating within that program, creating newness within something you've already proven to work, That's a smart marketer. That's a smart entrepreneur, an efficient one that's going to be super productive. But let's say that I did decide to create a new course every single year. Number one, I would not have been able to quadruple from that first revenue as fast as I did because I would be starting over. The first launch is the hardest. The first launch, you usually make the least. And so imagine just always just making the minimal of a brand new course every year. And on top of that, launching new course content each time would mean constantly having to build confidence in teaching it to my students. Like with DCA, it's a completely different story. I know this content inside and out. I could talk about it in my sleep because I've lived and breathed it for 6 years. Having taught it several times, because I've re-recorded the program as I've made it better a few times, I've gotten better and better. But then every time I launch it, I do a private Facebook community where I am in that community for 9, 10, 11 weeks, depending on what the calendar looks like. And I'm answering questions about my course every single week. And so I have refined how I teach it. I've refined how I talk about it in my marketing, and I've refined how I support my students and get them results faster. I believe that you get better as a leader, an entrepreneur, a teacher, a marketer, if you continue to do the same thing, but look for growth within that. Look for opportunity within that because you're building on what you already know, what you've already done. It's something that people just do not talk about enough. And you can replace courses with your membership. You could say you create a mastermind and each year you get better and better with your mastermind. It actually doesn't have to be courses. I think courses is the best way to build a business, but you can kind of look at the same principle for any kind of thing that you do in your business. It's just having the consistency and the commitment to continue to put that out into the world. Now, I mentioned earlier that I know my numbers are really big. So you're like, of course you'd relaunch a course where you made 3 million. But remember, I made $10,000 in my first successful course launch, and I relaunched that baby over and over and over again. But don't just take it from me. I love to tell you stories about my students. So I have a student, her name is Margarita, and she offers a course titled Italian Basics for English Speakers. Now, in her first launch, she generated $10,692 to be exact. She relaunched the same course 2 more times. In her third launch, she generated over $200,000 in revenue. So she went from $10,000. By her third launch, she had generated $200,000. That's nearly a 20-fold improvement from the first time she launched. Imagine if she only launched once and moved on to something else. Or consider my student, Camille. Camille created the course Remote Work 101. So this course helps people who want to travel and work on the go in an RV. So in her first launch, she priced the course at $47 and made 50 sales, bringing in a little over $2,000. As I mentioned earlier, I would relaunch that course, and thank God she did. In her second launch, she increased the price of her course to $97 and made over $5,000 in revenue. But she didn't stop there. In her third launch, she made over $20,000. And Camille's story brings up another great point regarding the relaunch strategy. As your course improves, it can increase in price as well. So this is because you're constantly adding more value, honing your skills as a teacher. You're able to get people bigger results as you make your program better and better year after year. The bigger results you promise, the more you can charge. So this means your students, if they're getting results faster, if they're getting bigger results, you should be increasing the price of that course. And getting students faster and better results is a big reason why I'm so passionate about the relaunch strategy. Every time I launch DCA, I'm able to bring even more to the table as a teacher. I can serve my students more effectively, meeting them exactly where they are because I get them. I've been in the trenches with them for years, and I can guide them step by step to where they actually want to be because I know how to teach in a better way now, and I know what they need. And that's just how it works. I mean, even though I gave it my all with the first DCA launch, starting something new means things feel a little bit messy. No matter what you do, no matter how good a teacher I am in order to teach you how to create and launch a digital course, you've never done this. Of course, it's going to feel rocky the first time out. The relaunch strategy pushed me to take action, even when I felt uncertain. By knowing I was going to relaunch the course, I could trust that I am giving myself time and space to get better and gain even more experience. Knowing that everything was not riding on that first launch was the best feeling ever. And I want you to do the same for your first launch. It's not the end all be all. The success of your first launch has nothing to do with your self-worth. Actually, the success of any launch doesn't, but let's just talk about that first launch. No matter what happens, you can always get better from there. And that's the launch that will feel the shakiest, is just how it goes. I want to kind of show you what this looks like in real life. So I'm going to give you an example. During one of my launches, I noticed that my students were really struggling inside the program in this one area. And so I decided to add some live trainings because my program is pre-recorded. So when I finally was like, ooh, that's it. That's where they're struggling. It finally kind of clicked. It took a few launches for me to understand where they were struggling in this one little area. And I finally figured it out. And so my program's pre-recorded. So I wasn't going to go back into studio to create videos in the moment. So I have a community that I attach to my digital course. So like when you buy Digital Course Academy, you get to go into a community in 2024. It's for 11 weeks with me. And so in that community, I decided to do some live trainings as supplements to the existing training I had. And I created something called the Webinar Topic Test Drive. And I did this live session where I allowed people to get on Zoom with me. And if they were struggling, because this is the area I identified they were struggling, they couldn't figure out what to teach in their webinar based on the topic they were teaching in their course. And I think what got them stuck was, I'm giving everything in my course. What do I have left for a webinar? A free webinar to promote my course? I don't have any content left. I put it all in my course. So they were really struggling. So I have a formula that I teach how to come up with your webinar topic. And I said, okay, let's do this live because obviously some of you are struggling. Come up on Zoom with me. They would come on Zoom and they would say, okay, this is the topic of my course. This is what I'm thinking for my webinar. What do you think? And it was really easy for me to say, yep, that will work, or no, that won't work. And here's why. I'm the expert here. And so in the moment, I could take away some of the struggle and what was keeping people stuck. So number one, you can be nimble even when your course is happening. And number two, you can bet that I've incorporated that now into my program. I still do them live. I really like those live sessions, but I've also incorporated more details on how to get unstuck inside the program once I uncovered the problem. But it took me a few years to figure out what that was. And so again, that's why you don't want to just jump ship early on in your course. So another common hurdle I noticed from my Digital Course Academy students was the technical side of setting up a digital course, the digital course, and then the launch of the digital course. So to help with this, I decided to offer live tech Q&A sessions. Now, since teaching tech is not my thing, like even the thought of it just gave me chills, I brought in someone who's an expert to help improve this part of the course. So I've got this guy in Digital Course Academy called Dave Kaminsky, and he is my go-to tech guru. I have worked with Dave before Digital Course Academy came out. I've worked with him, I'm guessing, for like 10 years. I love this guy. I don't even remember how we met, but he kind of started to help me with something. Then I'm like, can you actually help my students with this as well? So now he's our resident tech guy inside of Digital Course Academy, and he does Q&As. I just love the fact that I identified an issue. And in this case, I was not going to be the one that could help people get unstuck. So instead, I found someone to teach the tech side of digital course creation. So by reinvesting some of the revenue from my previous launches back into my current course, I was able to hire Dave to do all of this. And for the record, he's not overly expensive, but even if he was, reinvesting the money to make your course better is yet another reason why you want to relaunch year after year. So when it's time for you to launch and relaunch your course, I want you to pay close attention to the questions your students are asking. Whether it's in your support inbox or through a community group or during a live Q&A, there's patterns that are going to pop up. Just really pay attention, read between the lines. You will see where you want to make your course better year after year. But I'm going to give you just a cautionary tale. When I only re-record my program every other year, so every other year I re-record Digital Course Academy. I have friends that don't re-record their courses for like 5 years, but some of the stuff I teach some of it is timely. And also I just have gotten better year after year and I just can't help it. I want to make the program better. But there are probably 20 things I would want to change every time I re-record it, but I do not allow myself to do that. I ask myself, like, what are the top 5 areas that I want to make better, or top 3 even, and I go deep into those instead of changing everything. Because as course creators, we're creative, right? And we love to change things up. We love to make things better. But this is not like a full break it all down, tear it all down, burn it all down, build it back better every other year. It's tweaks, it's improvements. It's not everything goes out the window. Very important for your sanity. You have to restrain yourself. But you do want to look for opportunities to smooth out the rough spots or help people get unstuck in a few different areas. That's what you're looking for. And this could mean tweaking the pre-recorded lessons, adding new templates for students to use, including a bonus, maybe add to your resource library, things like that. All right, so I want to switch gears here, but I want to just make sure that you kind of really get the importance of the relaunch and understand that it's not a full burn it down, bring it back better every year. It's small tweaks just to make it better year after year. All right, so now that you know about the relaunch strategy and how it can boost your business's revenue and better support your students, I want to explore the 3 essential tools you'll need to successfully implement this strategy in your course. Are you ready? All right, first up, one tool that's absolutely essential for relaunching a course is a launch debrief. Ooh, this one's important. In Digital Course Academy, I literally teach my students how to do a launch debrief because a launch debrief acts as a detailed retrospective. It helps you understand what worked, what didn't, and how you can boost your future launch efforts and your sales in the future. So here's how I set this up with my team. During a launch, each team member maintains a Google Doc to note what's working, any challenges that come up, and the key metrics that they're responsible for. So this is just something that everyone sets up. Set up your Google debrief document. And the reason why they need to do it before we launch is that in the launch is when you really see things. If you're like, oh, I need to remember that for after the launch, you'll never remember it. So if something breaks down during a launch, if something doesn't feel right, if something's crushing it, you jump into your Google Doc and you just take a quick note, just quick, messy notes inside your Google Doc. And then after the launch, we actually compile all of the information into a single comprehensive debrief document. Someone in marketing, an assistant in marketing usually puts this together. And if you're just starting out and you don't have a team, you can begin this by managing and tracking these details on your own. You have your own Google Doc. But as you grow and bring on even more people on your team, even just like a virtual assistant, ask them to take real-time notes as well, so that you're not the only one tracking everything. Now, when you debrief your launch and its effectiveness, I want you to focus on key metrics such as your total course units sold, total revenue, and total profit. So these figures will give you a clear view of your launch's financial success and help you set benchmarks for the future. Now, start by tracking a few metrics. Then as you become more comfortable with the process and your business grows, gradually you can expand your debrief to capture even more detailed insights. Keep it simple, get fancy later. For example, I now track which launch bonuses effectively drive enrollments. And I analyze webinar metrics like attendance, engagement, and conversion rates to see their impact on my sales. Additionally, I evaluate various marketing channels such as social media, ads, email marketing, and of course, affiliate partnerships. And I look at those and how well they're doing to optimize how I can allocate my budget for future launches. I didn't start tracking all of these stats in the beginning. Heck, I started with tracking nothing, to be quite honest. So even if you have a few things you're tracking, you're going to be ahead of me with your first launch, your second launch, and so on. So with each relaunch, I got better at tracking and really understanding what I wanted to track and what was most important. Moving on to the second key tool in my relaunch strategy, which is a simple survey. After each launch, I send out a survey to those on my email list who didn't enroll in my program. And I ask them just this one question: what's the number one reason you didn't enroll in Digital Course Academy? Now, the feedback from this survey is incredibly valuable. It helps me identify the objections I need to address before I launch again, and it allows me to tailor my weekly content to meet my audience's exact issues, challenges, and fears. I get to meet them where they're at. And essentially, the survey allows me to do so. So the content I'm referring to, where I meet my audience where they're at, that content is this podcast. So during the off season, when I'm not actively launching my program, my focus is on constantly serving my audience. And I do this by releasing new podcast episodes every week. This way, by the time that I launch again, I've already built trust with potential students because I've been talking about the exact topics that they shared with me in their survey about why they didn't join my program. And let me tell you, this strategy works like magic. I've had students practically lining up to join my course before I even open the doors. And I really do believe it's because the value I've shared all year long, and I've touched on the things that they've said that they're concerned about or what stopped them or what's kept them stuck. Now, I will say that when you send out a survey like this, there's not going to be tons and tons of people who answer it for you. So don't expect like hundreds or thousands of responses. Even if you get a good chunk of people just sharing why they didn't join, I would just go with that. Don't worry about the fact that you're not getting as many as you thought. Not many people want to fill out a survey to tell you why they didn't buy, but some really great feedback will come in. It's just not going to come in droves. So one thing you need to think about. So again, and every time you send out that survey after a launch, you want to make sure you spend some time with the responses. Even if you don't get a ton of responses, every response counts. And it's so valuable. Like I treat that information as gold. So your weekly content, it might not be a podcast. It could be a blog or a video show or a different format. That part doesn't matter. It's just important that you figure out what is keeping your audience stuck, why they're not buying from you, and then address those concerns, challenges, doubts in your weekly original content throughout the year. All right, so let's talk about the final tool that is essential for an effective relaunch strategy, and that is a course update document. This is a big deal. It's called a course update document. Now, I use a simple Google Doc for this, and it features a table where each row corresponds to a lesson in my course. I just keep it really simple. And there's just a space next to each lesson title for any notes that come up. And I use this document throughout the entire year. So this document is helpful for when I go to record and I want to make improvements and I want to plan out some updates. This is my Bible. And so if I use this all year long, really where it comes in handy is I launched my course, and for 11 weeks, I'm in a private Facebook group with my students. And as I see questions pop up, like if there's a question that keeps coming up again and again and again, I'm realizing next time I record this or next time I launch this, some way or another, I need to address this question in the program. And so I'll put it right there in the Google Doc. Like next time we launch, make sure to include information around this question. So I put it wherever it needs to go in the document. But in the moment, it's like that launch debrief. You'll never remember if you just don't do it in the moment. If you're getting older like me, you absolutely will not remember. And so you just want to make sure in the moment you see something, you think of something, maybe even think of a new idea. Or maybe you're watching someone else launch and you're like, oh, that's genius how they did that. And you want to model something, you're not going to copy them. You're just going to get inspiration from them, put it in your doc. So again, you're going to use this throughout the year. I add any insights from my industry, successful strategies that are working well in my business, suggestions from my students. I'm in masterminds. So if someone in my mastermind has a great idea that they're doing for their launch, and I'm like, oh, I want to remember that for next time, I put it in the doc. Create the document while you're creating the course so that you have it from the get-go. And so the process keeps the course consistently updated, ensuring it remains fresh and effective. Plus, there's a fantastic perk for my alumni because once you enroll in Digital Course Academy, you have lifetime access to any updates that I make. So this means that any alumni feedback that I get, it doesn't just help shape the course, it ensures the course continues to deliver value long after they first joined. So I love when my alumni are giving me feedback because they're in there year after year or whenever they want to jump back in. And also, just a small side note, allowing alumni to have lifetime access into the course. It's really cool to see on social media when someone's been in my course for 4 years, but they're creating a new digital course and they know I update my course every other year. So when they're going to do a new course, they go through the program again years later to get all the new stuff. So it just happened with Corinne Crabtree. She's a dear friend of mine. She knows courses really well, but she took a picture of going through my course again to update one of her courses. And I'm like, dang, that is just so cool because she's had huge success with her courses. So I just think that's really cool. All right. So again, every other year you can update your course. So I want to be clear. Every year, if I need to make tweaks, I will, but it's every other year that I actually do a whole new re-record of my program. You don't need to do it that way. I just do, and it feels good to me. But the updates are going to vary. Sometimes you might want to re-record an entire module. Maybe it's just one video. Maybe you're updating a bonus, a PDF, like it's all going to be different. But as long as you keep that document updated, you'll know kind of where you want to focus. So to establish an effective relaunch strategy, I encourage you to establish a similar system after your first course launch. So treat this document as a living, breathing resource that you update continuously until your next launch. So every single time you launch, you've got this document that you're going to add to it to remind yourself what you want to do the next time you launch. All right, let's move in to wrapping this up. So I know we covered a lot today, but what I really hope you heard and what you learned today is this. I hope this episode has shown you how digital courses can truly offer you incredible freedom when done right. And the key to unlocking this freedom is through relaunching your course. By creating just one digital course and relaunching it again and again, you can grow your business faster, make more revenue, and become a better business owner, marketer, and online teacher. So if you're ready to build this kind of valuable course, one that you can launch over and over again, one where you don't always have to start from scratch, one that will allow you to scale your business over time, I have something for you that you do not want to miss. I am doing a free live training. It's coming up very soon. It's called 5 No-Fuss Steps to Creating a Profitable Digital Course from Scratch. And you're going to learn how to nail a 5, 6, or even 7-figure launch with ease, and all without needing a big team or a hefty budget. This is your opportunity to kickstart your digital course journey, one that you can be talking about for years and years to come. You can register for free at amyporterfield.com/masterclass. Even if you're a little bit curious if you could make this happen, amyporterfield.com/masterclass. Thanks so much for joining me for another episode of Online Marketing Made Easy, and I'll see you next week, same time, same place. Bye for now.